Candyman, 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 Candyman.
Don't say that.
Hey everybody, Lindsay here, and this is my review for Candyman. Candyman, directed by Nia DaCosta, written by her and Jordan Peele, and I think one other person. This is a sequel to the 1992 movie Candyman, starring Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd as the titular slasher, which I am a huge fan of, one of my favorite horror movies ever. So I was very excited to see this one, see what they were going to do with it, how they were going to bring it into the modern era, how they were going to handle the social commentary from the first film, how they were going to handle that, and just what they were going to do with this character and with the story. The overall storyline of this film is it follows the character of Anthony. And Anthony is an emerging artist in Chicago art scene. And he's struggling to find inspiration. And he finds that inspiration in the story of Candyman and the urban legends surrounding it. And the more he goes into this legend, the further he is consumed by it.
I'm hoping to spread the story all about Candyman. The mirror invites you to summon him.
My overall thoughts on this film are, it's very well shot, it's very well written. For the most part, the acting is very good. I have a few issues with it, which I'll discuss later, but first let's talk about what I did like about the movie. Like I said, it's shot well, majority of it is acted well, it's written well. I like that it was not a rehashing of the original film. While there are some similar beats to it, it takes it in a very new and fresh direction. It's not a stereotypical slasher movie. It's a lot deeper than that. It has a lot to say, but it takes those basic horror slasher tropes and broaden and expands upon them to enrich the narrative. And what this film does successfully, that was probably the biggest criticism of the first film, is that it recenters the narrative to focus on the legacy of Candyman and who that really affects. The audience gets a better sense of what the figure of Candyman represents, which is generational trauma and trying to escape generations of abuse and racism, and how that legacy affects the characters in this story. The two areas that I believe it failed where the original succeeded was, one, the tone. The tone of the original is one of the highlights of that film. It's extremely gothic, it's very spooky and atmospheric. You do get some of that in this film, but it's continuously broken by certain scenes and certain characters where they try to add lightheartedness or jokingness, and it seems out of place. So that haunting tone is not consistent. And the other thing that I believe where the original succeeded and this one does not is in the figure of Candyman himself. In the original, you have Tony Todd, who was amazing in that role. And that movie created a character that was sympathetic, that was stylish, that was alluring, that was just captivating, haunting. When you hear his voice for the first time, it just sends chills down your spine. Helen. In this one, we don't get to know that figure as well as we do in the original. We get to hear other people talk about him and things like that, but we never get his perspective. We get our main character's perspective quite a bit, but we don't get that Candyman figure's perspective. And I think that's what was missing for me. Overall, I did enjoy this film. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, but it's doing some very interesting things. And as with many sequels or reboots, we get a rehash of a lot of the same tropes, but this one is trying to do something different. And for that, I have to applaud it. And one more thing that kind of stuck out to me in comparison with the original is that the original was pretty subtle, some might say too subtle, with its social commentary about things that were going on. In this one, the further the movie goes, the less subtle it becomes, to where it is anything but. And I think that could have been finessed a little more. But if anything, it gets its point across to you. So there's that.
Candyman's the whole damn hive.
All right, now I'm going to talk about a few spoilers, just a little things that popped out to me that I wanted to comment on, good or bad. So if you have not seen the movie, skip to this time code. One of the things that I really liked about this film was the stuff they did with mirror images. And not just the mirrors themselves, but some of the shots were mirror images of things that happened in the first one. And that hits you right away in the opening. In the opening of the first one, we get that Philip Glass score. It's very haunting, very gothic. And we are hovering over the city looking down. In the opening of this film, we get that Philip Glass melody, but it's played very differently, and instead of looking down on the city, we are flying through the city looking up. I thought that was a very, very cool effect, because we are looking at this story through a completely different lens, and they are telling you that right away. And I also loved how there wasn't a lot of jump scares in this movie, which was very refreshing. I mean, there were a few here and there, but a lot of times when you see the Candyman, he's just in the corner, in the mirror, in the reflection. And that's very, very effective and very, very spooky. I really liked how they did that. The brother character was kind of confusing to me, because I didn't understand fully what his character was, because he's the one that initially tells the urban legend of Helen Lyle. But through the rest of the film, he's like, no, I don't want to deal with that. We're not doing that. We're not dealing with any spooky shit. But it's like, dude, you're the one that was the catalyst for this. You're the one that was shutting out the lights, closing the drapes, lighting a candle, and telling this spooky story. But then after that, your character didn't want to have anything to do with any of that. So that didn't quite make sense to me, but that's very minor.
Black people don't need to be summoning.
And while I understood that ending scene, it was still confusing the way that it was shot, because she's sitting in that abandoned housing unit and he's laying on the ground in her arms, and then the cop busts in, and at first I thought that the other guy got back up and the cop shot him, because he's laying in a different spot, it almost looks like. It wasn't obvious, or it was very confusing to me that the cop shot him as he's laying down. That I didn't get that until he puts her in the cop car and he's like, this is what you're gonna say is what happened. So I didn't quite understand that. Just, it was very clumsily shot, in my opinion, it was very clunky to me. And the other thing that I haven't quite figured out yet is what the ultimate goal was by creating this new Candyman. What are his acts going to accomplish within this story?
Candyman. You want to be a part of the story, right?
No.
Anyway, those are my thoughts on this film. Like I said, I did enjoy it, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I'll probably watch it again, maybe pick up on some other things, but those are my initial thoughts after seeing it once in the theater. If you have seen it, please let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear about it. If you have not, go see it. Go watch it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are, especially if you are a big fan of the original. Well, that is going to do it for this review. So until next time, this is Lindsay signing off. I'll check you later.